So ladies and gentlemen, just before we come to Q&A, I want to make some quick comments so that you can not only enjoy the Q&A session, but also you can meet with the families informally, as I hope you will do. First and foremost, to provide the context for our gathering here, when I was a young boy, I was taught a poem, and the poem referred to the attitude of the nations of the world towards the Jewish people. It was penned by Amir Gilboa, who moved to what was then Palestine from Ukraine. And Amir Gilboa wrote there that, quote, Im yaroni etz ve'omar etz yomru etz, im yaroni even ve'omar even yomru even, ach im yaroni dam ve'omar dam yomru tseva. What Gilboa had written there about the attitudes of the nations of the world towards the Jewish people was, and I quote, if they, the nations of the world, show me a tree, and I as a Jew concur that it's a tree, they will say, yes, it's a tree. And if they show me a stone and I concur that it's a stone, they will say, yes, it's a stone. But if they show me my Jewish blood spilled, and I concur that it's my Jewish blood spilled, those nations will turn to me and they will say, it's not Jewish blood, it's just paint. It's just color. And after October 7th, when 1,200 of our men, women, children were murdered, beaten, raped, decapitated, abused, set alight, incinerated. Within 3 days, I was on the BBC defending the right of the Jewish people to fight, because what the State of Israel means is that the value of Jewish blood, of course, will never be relegated to nothing more than just spilled paint. But the international community, within 3 days, was already leveling its bogus charges against our right to go forward and to destroy this enemy. About that fight that you see going on inside the Gaza Strip, again, when 1,200 innocents are murdered in the most heinous, depraved manner in documented history, I would say, when 240 of our family, your family, are taken and thrown in dungeons, bound and beaten, filmed as such, and then those films broadcast for their mothers to see. We members of the Israel Defense Forces have no right but to fight and to win, by the way. And what you're seeing, as I said earlier, is the process of us winning. There is a Jewish phrase that sums all of this up beautifully. It's a standard. It says, "Bamakom she'en anashim ishtadel lihyot ish." In a place where there is no humanity, strive to be human. What you're seeing over there in Gaza at the hands of our soldiers is the steady, hard-fought, hard-won implementation of humanity in a place that hitherto was ruled by demons. And anything and everything that needs to be done in order for these people to be able to bring their families home, and for the people who have been converted into refugees in their own land, 300,000 Israelis at this time, approximately half of them from the southern enclave adjacent to the Gaza Strip. That must be done, should be done, can be done, and we should damn well fight this fight until absolute and total victory over this enemy. The final point before I come to questions, to taking your questions. Events have a way of tearing us from those things that we love the most. In 2006, there were 2 Israeli hostages who had been killed and kidnapped. Their names were Goldwasser and Regev. They were returned to us in body bags. They were kidnapped by Hezbollah, and these were the events that preceded our entry into southern Lebanon during the Second Lebanon War. There was another individual who was kidnapped on that time. A completely unknown name, a soldier in the tank unit, the armored corps, by the name of Gilad Shalit. And I lectured around communities here in the United States of America and beyond. And time after time after time, people would come to me obsequiously, quietly, furtively. And they'd ask me about Gilad Shalit. And they'd say to me things like, he's probably dead by now, isn't he? Some of you may have harbored these sorts of sentiments. There's no crime or shame in it. They said to me, given what they're doing to him, presumably, maybe it's best that he doesn't come home. And I said to them that we have absolutely no right to give up hope. For as long as we do not know otherwise, we are to presume that he is alive, and we are to presume and assume that he will come home to his land and to his family. And 5 years later, that is precisely what took place. And Gilad Shalit now lives a life that is wholly unexceptional. He lives a perfectly normal, normative, functioning life inside the state of Israel. And that is what all of these people here dream for their son, and for what everybody in Israel, for the remaining hostages, dreams for their children. And it's that hope that nobody here in this room has any right to forsake. And it's also that hope that each and every one of you embodies for each and every one of the people here in front of you. They are placing their hope, believe it or not, in you. And just to crystallize how desperately they are fighting this fight and how against their nature this is, I want to make mention of the two males up here. Eli David is studying physics at Hebrew University, having served in an elite unit in the Israel Defense Forces. This is nobody who needs to or is in the habit of asking for help. He is in the midst of plying his own destiny and future in a way that all of you would be proud of, were he your son. Aviram Meir served in Sayeret Matkal as an officer. Sayeret Matkal, not the group that Aviram fought in, is the same unit that carried out successfully the raid on Entebbe. This is not a man who is in the habit of asking for assistance. These are the best of Israel. And those who are in captivity are the best of Israel. And every member of Israel is responsible one for the other. Is he not? And so what we want from you is we want you to connect us. There are people in this room who know, members of the Senate, members of the House, policymakers, influencers, sports teams. You are in this room, and I know you're in this room. We need to keep the names of Almog Meir Jan and Evyatar David at the forefront of public consciousness. And there are too many people who are tweeting, Instagramming, posting the story of the Palestinian Arabs, and these people's families are being forgotten. And it's happening on our watch. And if you don't help us to engage with that, even in addition to all that I'm sure you're already doing, we'll have no right, after this is over, when the guns fall silent, to ask whatever it was we could have done. We need those relationships, we need those contacts, and we need those connections. If you know people in the media, connect us. If you know sports players, connect us. If you know influencers, connect us. Because what we need to do is make this personal. And step away from these people just being part of a greater number.